Hello again everyone. So here I am again with the next video on my request list. Now this video is focusing on the life purpose. It's not so much how it blends with the other numbers like the expression or soul urge number at the moment. This is focusing on your elements of development before they are blended with anything else. So it's not letting you know how easy or difficult you might find it. I mean, you're going to know by looking at it a lot of the time. But this is going to be the elements that you are here to achieve. And you're going to think, okay, that's harder than that. That might be easier than that. But this is just letting you know that so you can start to think about how you can achieve the elements of your life path, most importantly, but bringing in that sub-lesson, that important sub-lesson of the 8, because your birthday number is 8. So looking at these two numbers together, you've got two opposites, haven't you? You're here to be a spiritual life path 7, 90% focus, most important number. So this person is here to walk a spiritual path, to understand their spirituality to a strong degree, to know that they're a spiritual being inside a human body, but to have strong links also with the world, because they have a strong sub-lesson in the 8, which is very worldly, very much about achievement and earning money. So when you look at these numbers together, you think a spiritual person using their spirituality most primarily, but earning money or using or being a 7 in the world and earning money or making things happen using their 7-ness. So it's very much about having a huge amount of you in the spiritual and using that to help you achieve in the world, because it's saying be a 7, focus on your inner development, but also use that in the world to help you earn money. And that's either using your skill as a background ability or literally teaching people wisdom to earn money, however you want to do it. But you're here to earn money as well as be a 7. So it's not just about your inner development. It's 90% that. But there's also a strong element of you getting out there in the world as a 7 and creating abundance as a 7 and feeding your 8-ness, your worldly go-getterness, your goal achievement through your 7 life path. So it's having one foot in the spiritual, but also tapping your toes in the worldly and bringing your 7-ness to the world to earn. That's in a big picture of your life purpose. So let's break it all down. So that was a big picture focus. Be spiritual, but use it in the world to earn money and abundance that you can use as a tool to help others. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to break down the elements of the 7 to say these are your major things to achieve, but also add in the elements of the 8 to enhance your life path or to mix with your life path, but remembering to focus and prioritize the 7, because that's your life path number. That's the king of your kingdom. So first and foremost is the 7. You're here to develop total connection and faith in your intuitive wisdom, to know that you're a spiritual being inside a human shell. You've lived before, you'll live again, and that you're here to learn and develop as a soul, and that you're not the person who goes to work every day. You're not just a mum, a dad, a brother or a sister, or an engineer, or an actor, whatever. You're a spiritual being that has been many things, has been many races, has been many genders, to experience what it's like to be in each machine in order to develop your soul. Now, this is the fundamental learning of a 7, to know that they are an immortal spiritual being, to focus on the experience that they have within them, because they know they've had previous lives and there's a lot of experience there. So they know that their intuitive voice within is the library of their knowledge and should really go to that as a form of information. But sometimes a 7 can either overanalyze and overthink worldly things and over analyze other theories, or have an intuitive thing come to them or an intuitive wisdom, and then they overthink it, over analyze it, and then don't go the intuitive way. Or sometimes they can be too spiritual, too intuitive, and disconnect from the world totally. So it's about having, not over analyzing, not overthinking, but primarily focusing on what does my intuition say about this, and making a decision based on that, with, of course, a balanced analysis of the world and what other people say and what other theorists say. And, not blocking that out, but listening to that too before you make your final intuitive decision. It's not about blocking out the world, as some sevens can want to do. You're here to trust that the universe isn't against you. It's actually a perfect balance of light and dark. It's there for our experience and learning. You can't fully learn about love without understanding the horrors of hate. We've got to see both sides of the coin. And whereas sometimes we can feel that the world is dark and the world is against us and everybody's hideous and I can't trust anyone, that's not the case. It's 50-50 light and dark for our learning and experience. And the dark experiences are going to come because they're part of your learning, they're part of your evolution, and you will learn the most actually from the negative times in your life when things go wrong, because that's the time, that's the exam paper, that's the opportunity to learn. It's not for what we often do as an excuse or an opportunity for us to sit and wallow in the things that have gone wrong. It's all about learning and developing and doing the exam and being stronger after. So it's about trusting that the world is just how it's supposed to be, that the things are happening to you because they're meant to happen to you for your learning and develop. And you've got to trust yourself, but you might mistrust yourself. You might mistrust the world. You might have this idea that the world is dark and I should hide from it, but that's not the case at all. Experience it, learn from it, and use your intuition as your ultimate guide, but also make sure you're still looking at the world and still analysing what the world is giving you, and then see what your intuition has to say. You're here to prioritise primarily, though, your inner development, to understand who you are, why you're here, what you're here to achieve, what your abilities are. Very numerology. That's why I love it so much. So inner development, evolution, learning the little micro lessons that help us develop as a soul, spiritual development, maybe even psychic development for many sevens love their psychic intuitive development. But of course, they can struggle with that even sometimes, depending on their soul urge and talent number. They might disconnect from the outside world totally and go into themselves and isolate themselves totally and become this like spiritual hermit, or they might go the other way and just discount spirituality and overanalyze the world and analyze and pick the world apart and look at how bad it is. That's like the really horrific conspiracy theory, the world is lying to us kind of energy. That's like the seven in fear. You're here to be a researcher, a thinker, a studier of others' theories. Remember, it's not about blocking out the world. You're here to be spiritual, but you're here to experience the world too. If you were here just to float, you'd still be in source energy floating amongst all the other souls. You've come to Earth for a reason, to experience the world. So you've got to look at the world. You've got to experience it. You've got to research theories and look not only at what you go through and the experiences you have in life, but how you pull together the knowledge and theories of those around you, and how you then think, what's true about that, and how you filter that through your intuition for its truth. But you might struggle to focus enough on any one research subject, enough to attain any kind of progression, because the sevens love to look at everything. They're spiritually hungry, and they look at many esoteric subjects all at once. So they've got to learn to try and focus on one, or maybe even two, if they've got the energy to do that, and then bring in a progression through that. Because then, depending on their birthday number and the other numbers in their chart, they can then either develop themselves, or if their purpose asks for it and their sub-lessons ask for it, express that to others too. it's likely that there will be a certain amount of not just developing you, but actually bringing that into the world. And of course, definitely for you, because your birthday number is 8, even before you consider your sub lessons. If you're a 167 or a 257 or a 347 like me, you've got to take that into account as well. But of course, that's a more detailed video for members, which you can yourself have if you want to. So, being a researcher, thinker, an achiever, an experiencer, learning from your experiences and your study of theory, filtering it through your intuition and developing a kind of wisdom to add to your already filled library of wisdom in your intuition. Balance that logic and intuition, filter your research through it, but don't subordinate the intuition or subordinate the theory. Have a balance of the two. Look at the world and always use your intuition, and prioritize your intuition. When you've looked at all the theories, go with what you feel is intuitively right, but only after you've looked at all the theories and you've analysed what's out there in the world. Don't block the world out. You've got to look at it and use it as part of your intuitive decision-making process. Don't subordinate your intuition, and be careful not to allow that toddler brain in. You're here to focus on one theory and topic, like I said, can be quite difficult, but you've got to you've got this strong interest, but find one that really gets you, that you feel that you can really dig yourself into, and try and focus on that to develop you internally first. And then, depending on your birthday number or your sub lessons, see how that inner development could be expressed depending on those sub lessons and birthday number. But for you, first of all, the birthday number is 8, so it's very much about outer expression. But before we look at the 8, I want to look at the social tasks of the 7, because remember, the 7 comes first. So you're here to be a free thinker, not so interested in popular culture or how everybody else does things. You're here to look beyond the veil, to look beyond the news and look at the information, the alternative information that the control system or the paradigm might try and hide or not make public. Or, this is subjects, information, ideas, concepts that are pushed away from the control system because it might not be in their interest for us to know that. Spiritual truths, our understanding, because if we used our intuition more, nobody would believe anything the news reporters said, because most of it is spin and agenda, and 7s smell that. And it's because they're intuitive, and the more they use their intuition, the more they notice that. So they look beyond popular culture. They seem to have this higher understanding of things, and they will look into those big questions and not research or be interested in the same things that most people are, But they can then, either push that away, or they can completely disconnect from the masses totally and be totally focused on their own study without looking at the world at all, without communicating. And this all links to the 7's tendency to isolate and just completely disconnect without, being in the world, but obviously still looking for that truth within it. It's not about disconnecting. It's still about learning and experiencing the world and looking beyond the veil to what we might not be shown so readily by the paradigm or the control system. You're here to be independent, self-reliant, but also interdependent, because, 7s can get a bit too independent and push everyone away and think that they can do everything alone. And 7s do prefer to work alone. And it is, they can still work alone, but as long as they're not isolating themselves and not feeling they can do everything on their own, there's got to be an element of interdependence they learn there. And 7s, they really struggle with expressing their emotions at times. They can look towards others like they're emotionless, but actually they're a deep well of emotions that they hide from others, and they come across as aloof and emotionally disconnected from others, but actually they're a well of emotions and they're watching everyone. And they've got to learn to reconcile those deep emotions and then feel brave enough to emotionally express themselves authentically, to connect authentically with others and not feel that the world is going to, ridicule them in some way, but to have intuitive trust that they can be emotionally authentic and express their emotions authentically, so they don't hide their emotions beyond a wall, like an aloof wall, an emotionally disconnected wall that makes them look like there's nothing there behind their eyes, but that could not be further from the truth. And finally, as I've alluded to all the way through this video, sevens have to make sure they're balancing their alone and social time, because they have a tendency to draw away from the world and isolate themselves beyond what is healthy. The seven, it's really important that they're still connecting with others, as I said just now. But it's people that they intuitively trust. It's not about pushing people away, but it's also about having that balance of alone and social time. You know, if a seven spends all day with people, they need to have that time on their own to decompress. I know, I'm a seven. And it's not about pushing others away. It's about trying to balance the alone and social time and having that time to yourself, which is important for a seven. Okay. So let's have a look at the 8. So obviously being a 7 is the most important, but of course there's the 8 birthday number, which says, okay, bring in some elements of the 8 energy. Learn the worldly secrets of how to make money. Get involved in the business. So you could maybe have a spiritual business, or you could run your business intuitively. It's up to you how you do this, but remember the 7 comes first. But it's also saying get out into the world and learn the secrets of worldly financial success, how to earn money tangibly in the world, so that one day you might have personal freedom. You're here to also learn to earn financial abundance, and then eventually use that financial abundance as a tool to help others, rather than just as a tool to buy material things or status symbols. You're here to develop a healthy attitude towards money as an energetic mode of exchange, not as something that is a negative thing, which many 8s, karmic 8s and life path or birthday number 8s could have this difficulty. I certainly do as a karmic 8. You're here to develop a balanced attitude towards achievement and success, and not work too hard or too little. To be worldly, strong and realistic, and you can use your 7 spirituality to help bring you the realism, the resilience you need in the world, because you begin to think that issues that I encounter in the world, or even difficult people, are actually part of my spiritual development, and that in itself helps bring you resilience. So it's saying build your strength and resilience using your spirituality, so that you can be strong in the world and still be realistic and make things happen, deal with the world's ups and downs, because you have such a strong spiritual base behind you. And if you want to, you can actually market that spirituality to the world. It's up to you how you use it, but you're primarily a 7, but you're bringing that 7ness into the world in some way. You're here to have the courage and the bravery to take calculated risks for progression. Some of these are going to be a bit difficult when you blend them with the 7, but we'll come to that, because you're here to make things happen in the world to a lesser degree than the 7. So it's like using your 7ness to bring you success. But you might make and lose money erratically until you've learnt the lessons of how to make money. You know, you make mistakes. When you're learning to walk, you fall over. So there's going to be a time where you might feel, oh, the world is against me because I'm a 7, and, you know, I keep losing money, you know, and those two together can bring you down. But at the end of the day, keep in mind, you're here to learn how to make money. And that, you know, learning to walk means learning to fall over. Learning to ride a bike means learning to fall off. It's all part of the process. Don't let your 7 mistrust make you feel like it's never going to happen. You know, the world is against me, you know, and I'm going to not bother, because it's all part of your journey. You've got to keep moving forward. You've got to keep learning, you know. Eights can sometimes squander their abundance on worldly status symbols. Sevens are more spiritual, so less likely to squander their money on things that make them look good to others, because sevens care very little about what others think. So they're much less likely to spend their money on material gain in that way. Actually, a seven might be more likely to hold their money somewhere or squirrel it, or, a seven can feel like financial abundance might be something that they need to keep, because one day the world might go against me and I might need money to survive, kind of thing. And it's all part of the seven's slight worry about what the world might do to them in the future. So they might be a bit of a squirreler of the money rather than a spender of the money, and they'll keep it hidden rather than using it as a tool to help themselves and others, which is something you might need to focus on there, because you're here to develop a healthy attitude towards money as an energetic mode of exchange. Sometimes we can have a negative attitude. We can think the government's only out to take my money, people are only out to take my money, anyone who the government's just unethical, they just want to take our money. And it's just this negative. When we think of the word money, we think, either people without money are scum, or people with money must be unethical, or, we've just got this difficult, when somebody mentions money to you as a seven with an eight, how does that make you feel? Do you have any positive ideas about money, or are they all negative? It's about your mindset, which draws money to you or away from you. And I must say that this is an issue that I often struggle with at the moment, because it's my karmic number, and you will as well, because it's your birthday number 8. It's changing your attitude towards money as an energetic mode of exchange. That's all it is. Money is just energy. And if you change your attitude towards that, it will make a big difference for you. A balanced attitude towards achievement and success is likely to be easier, because the 7 is more about their inner development. They're not about outward success. So if anything, you're less about outward success, but there needs to be some outward success. So you're less likely to overbalance into workaholism. However, there might be some difficulties sometimes with getting out there and achieving your goals, because you're focusing on the 7. But, there is an element of outward success and money making needed for you, but mainly it's the 7. So you might not want to go full time, you want to go part time, and you certainly won't want to just focus on the world all the time, because that wouldn't be your path to do that. To be worldly and strong, you have a tendency towards being vulnerable, because you're here to be strong, but you have the chance here to not be vulnerable and allow your spiritual development to give you strength. But if you're not developing yourself spiritually in the 7, you can feel very vulnerable to the world, like, everyone's against me, I can't trust anyone. And this can cause you to be very sensitive, and you can struggle then to deal with the world at large and not be the resilient person that you're here to be. You can then be disorganized and slow moving, low in progress, and not getting your development out there because you're hiding away and missing opportunities. So there's some difficulties you might have to think about there, especially with your 7 energy as well. You're here to be ethical and responsible. Now the 7 is mostly about their own inner development, but that will show them an element of oneness, and that we need to look after the world. It's not just about them. So there is a spiritual element of ethics and responsibility within the 7. And the 8 is saying, make sure that the wisdom that you use, that you maybe express to others, or how you act in the world, is ethical and responsible. And you've got to consider the impact of how you act in the world, because 8s can be a bit unethical at times, and even at their worst, but not hugely because it's only your birthday number, but a certain amount of exploitation of others for their own gain. But that's at their very worst. So they've got to make sure that whatever they share in the 7, and how they make money in the 8 is ethical and responsible and looks out for how that affects others in the world, others around them and the wider world. They've got to be a skilled manager. So the 7's not about management, it's about inner development. But the birthday number 8 saying you bring a little bit of leadership and management in that. Balance your personal power so that you can direct others in a very charismatic way. Now, this is interesting because you're here primarily to deal with your inner self, but it's also saying get out there in the world and lead other people. So it's mixing those two. I very much see the idea of a spiritual business or a very spiritual person becoming successful in the world because of their strong spirituality. That's what you're here to do, because your spirituality and your intuition will help you develop the inner confidence and self-belief that you need to have in the birthday number 8 in order to get out there in the world. 8s will be much more successful if they follow their intuition in the 7 and take intuitive actions and not use outward validation from others unless it's their team in collaboration. They're very much about, okay, my team says this, the world says this, my heart says this, so I'm going to look at all areas and then follow what my intuition says. But it doesn't mean that they don't look at other areas too, but fundamentally they're very good at following their intuitive voice and having the confidence to move forward. But of course they can have issues with not having good ethics, unbalanced personal power, even being too dominating and controlling, or too submissive and dominated and not having a backbone, and not having that balance of personal power. And the backbone issue could be due to low confidence, lack of self-belief, or lack of your own abilities and your own inner negative voice saying to you you're not good enough. You need to take that inner voice, personify it as a silly animal like Sid the Sloth or the chimp, put a Where's Wally t-shirt on it or a silly clothes on it, whatever makes you laugh, and treat your ego voice as the burp that it is, and send it away, and then take everything that chimp says or that sloth says and switch it around. If he says you won't be good enough, you'll fail, you change that around and you say I am good enough and I'm going to be successful. Don't let that inner voice hold you back. That's really, really important. So that's the end of the video today. So if you are interested in a more in-depth video, press join on my channel and choose the second option or above. And then you'll get a one-to-one more detailed video. And even if you pick the top one, a one-to-one service. Then I can coach you and support you for as long as you're a member on my channel, and I will look after you. So if you want a more detailed video or a more one-to-one service, then join my channel. If you'd like to learn to be a numerologist, you can go on Udemy. I've got courses on there. I have books, Remember Your Life Purpose and Remember Your Talents. Pending is Remember Your Motivations. They're on Amazon. Put my name, Katie Youers, Youers, and the books will come straight up. Or you might just want a one-off reading. If you do, send me an email or contact me on social media, and I will do a 1 hour, 2 hour reading with you. I also offer ongoing coaching, one-to-one support. So just contact me with your needs and I'm sure I can accommodate you. So, but if you'd just like to request a video, put a message on my descriptions of my videos, on my comments boxes, because I always look at my comments and I write down any requests that I have. It takes me a while to do them, but I do get them done, and I do make sure each one is done and ticked off one by one. So it's first come, first serve, really. And if you want a quicker response, email's the best way to get through to me. But I am also on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn and Twitter. But if you want a quick response, email's the best one. But you've listened to this video, you've looked at all the wisdom that comes from numerology, but fundamentally you have to go with the soul within you and do what your intuition and gut feelings tell you. See you soon.